You get what you tolerate. Are you tolerating people bringing you challenges or problems and you having to solve those problems for them? Well, if you're tolerating it and you're giving them the next step and you're prescribing exactly what to do next, you're training that person to come back to you the next time they run into a problem. It could be a different problem, could be the same problem, but you're training them to come back to you to get the answers from you. Now, this works in the early stages of business when you're the founder and you have time to give. But as your company grows, as people are growing, you want them to feel empowered and you want them to do the work for themselves. Now, you may have to do this a little bit more intentionally with new employees. The newbies need your patience, need you to be a little bit more prescriptive. But most of your employees really are begging for you to help them solve it through leadership, not through prescriptive step-by-step. Now, let's dive into this because I want to give you a framework inside this that will unlock a really powerful way to lead people through challenges. And this framework is very easy to remember. It's the 3-3-1 framework, and it will help you guide your people to figuring out their own problems, help them make their own decisions. And that's the key. If you want to create strong leadership and a culture where people feel empowered, you want them to make their own decisions, right? Well, inside the 3-3-1 framework, you can do that. And you use some coaching skills inside there. So there's a lot going on, the nuances behind it. A lot of people get stuck right here, but I'm going to give it to you. And then I'll give you a little kind of ways to get around some of the nuances behind it. So the 3-3-1 framework is this. When someone comes to you with a problem or a challenge, your job is not to solve it immediately, but your job is to ask 3 questions. That's the first part of this, 3 questions. You want to ask them, what's the real problem? So you don't want to be surface level. You want to find and go deeper into the core issue as opposed to looking at the symptoms. And so you may ask a couple of questions inside that, but you want to make sure that both of you are clear about what the real problem is. The second question behind this is, what's causing the problem? What's the trigger for the problem? And once you get really clear about that, then you want to ask the third question, which is, what is the impact across the organization, across the other pieces? Who is being impacted and what's that impact? Once you get those 3 questions clear, then the next part of this is the real powerful element, which is 3 options. You want to ask your employee, what are the 3 options that we have available to us? When they are trained to bring back the 3 options, they are looking at what could work, what might not work. They are looking at all aspects of this, and you want them to do that. You are empowering them to look at the options of how we move forward through this challenge. And we could give examples, but this is pretty simple for you. But the next piece behind this, the 3-3-1 framework, is what is their recommendation? What is their one recommendation? Now, your job is not to berate them if they don't get the right thing that you think is the right thing, because they may really believe that this may work for them. The recommendation may work for their skill set. It may work. They may have more context than you. And so be open to what they come up with. Now, if you think there's a risk associated with their option or their way, then you can always ask more questions to get them to look at the perspective differently and get them to kind of go the direction that you think they should be going. This is strong leadership because the 3-3-1 framework will give you real insight into how they're thinking about this challenge and the problem. It will give them the empowerment to come up with 3 options and for them to feel like they can make a decision. And 9 times out of 10, what I've seen when this happens is that leaders leave the conversation knowing that they didn't tell them exactly what to do next, but they feel like that person is more clear about what's going on and they're more engaged and more activated around getting through the challenge as opposed to you telling them what the next step is. Now, one of the things that gets in the way of this is your own fear that you know better than they do and that they won't be able to do it the right way or they won't be able to do it as quickly as you could do it. Now, I help a lot of leaders go through this, and if we jumped on the phone for 5 minutes, I could help you create the breakthrough that will allow you to empower your people to the different level. Now, what you really want to take away from this is your job is not to solve the problems for them, but to coach them through an experience and give them the framework. The 3-3-1 framework is something that they can use themselves, but they can also use with their own team members. You can use this across an organization. You can teach this as what you expect of someone when they bring you a challenge. 3 questions, 3 options, 1 recommendation. Now, when you think about you becoming an extraordinary leader, if you use little frameworks like this, it will help you unlock something inside your organization. I do this all the time for my clients. I share these frameworks because I work with leaders in the fast growth companies that are going fast and they're in a lot of chaos and a lot of pressure, but they know leadership is the key to predictable growth. If you want to have any questions about what that means inside your organization, I invite you to send me a direct message. I'd love to connect with you and see if I can answer any questions about what's going on inside your world. And if you want to check out my website, just go to genehammett.com. You can find out more details about how I serve people to be extraordinary leaders and create predictable growth across their company. Just send me that direct message and I'll talk to you soon. When you think of leadership and you think of Growth Think Tank. As always, lead with courage. We'll see you next time.